And we're starting right now. No. But apparently people do watch this.
Oh,
Because Milt watched the first one, right?
Right.
That's right. And hopefully they're watching this in, maybe they should watch this in the front room to make sure the sound is working. We'll see if that happens. Maybe I'll send them. Okay, so we are on page number 12, right? Which is Unit 1, Session 3. And just see if I will text and say, is the sound okay? Yes, we can do that. Okay, so in the first two sections, we explored the significance of Teshuva, the importance of second chances. However, it's critical to raise a question about the potential limits. Is it ever too late? Okay. Is it ever too late? This is silly. I'm going to put this over here because you guys don't need to see a big picture of me. And I'm going to have to drag the other picture of that over to here, which means so I can actually see what I'm doing. And this we're going to, okay. Okay, fine. Right. So in the first two sections, we explored the significance. Okay, so is it ever too late? Is there a point when Teshuva is no longer possible? Or when receiving a fresh start is not in the cards, right? So before we move on to that, we need to consider the following. What are the potential risks in affording everyone a second chance? Okay, what do you think should be considered when deciding whether or not someone should restart with a completely clean slate before doing Teshuva? So any thoughts on that? Like, what do we have to think about? It's recidivism. Want to say a bit more about recidivism?
I think the statistic is most criminals caught today committed prior crimes.
Yeah.
At some point, how do you adjust your structure? Thankfully, I'll never have to make that decision. But
right. So okay. So there's the problem of recidivism. Should we even bother with Teshuva? Right. Okay. That's good. But remember, that's looking at Teshuva from the point of view of the person who's being made Teshuva to, not necessarily the person who's making Teshuva. Other thoughts on what we need to consider here?
What was the crime?
Okay, so what was the crime, right? Want to say a bit more about that?
You took what didn't belong to you. Okay, and why did you take it? Was it just because it was shiny and new, or because you needed it to survive? I mean, I recall Les Mis, okay, where Jean Valjean stole bread to feed his brother's family.
Right.
Okay. Or he stole the church's silver or whatever, and he started a business. Is one like the other?
Okay. Okay. Any other thoughts out there? Okay. So we're going to deal with that in our sources, okay? So there's going to be two factors. Factor number one is the intention of the person who commits the transgression, but what was their intentionality, okay? And whether the individual's perspective when committing a transgression affects their Teshuva process. Was it on purpose? Was it by accident? we are all of the generation where we make that distinction of on purpose and by accident, not on accident or by purpose. It's just, we're stubborn in this way. We don't want to just give up on that preference for prepositions. And the second is the severity of the transgression. Okay, so the intention, were they sinning with the intention to repeat? Hey, were they intending to repeat? Okay, so Omer, I'm going to sin and then I'll repent. I'll sin and then I'll repent. And must be keen biyadola teshuva. He does not have in his hands the ability to make teshuva, right? It's like that scene in any film that is making fun of the Catholic Church. It's like, Father, it's been 3 days since my last confession. What have you done? Well, I've murdered and I've done this and I've done that. Oh, okay. And then off he goes again, right? So, yeah, okay. He says, I'm going to sin and Yom Kippur will fix it for me, right? And Yom HaKippurim mechaper. Yom Kippur does not atone. Yay. Okay, so why is this? Like, why does this make sense?
There isn't much sincerity there. They're just going to do this, and hey, there's a day once a year, and it's going to take care of the repenting for them. So what the heck?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's like clearly it's not a jigsaw puzzle. It's not like it's not a technical thing. It's not just sort of a fill out the form and you get your degree online. Okay. Other thoughts on that?
Old Morris Silverstein books. Familiar with it?
Yeah.
Written back in 1839.
Oh yeah. I love that book.
It's cool. But anyway, there's a great line that Yom Kippur is between atoning between man and God, not man and man.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that we still have that.
We have
They haven't changed that, no. Okay. So what does it mean that he doesn't have the opportunity to repent?
Too busy sinning.
He's too busy sinning. Mills, I love that. I love that. Wow. It's like too busy sinning. Well, okay, but I thought it was that fun. But I think there's a deeper level to it. I think that the deeper level is that he's not in a framework of tshuva, right? Because tshuva is about changing your ways. And he's not changing his ways or her ways. Nothing is changing, right? It's like tshuva is supposed to be a big deal, right? You don't say, well, yeah, I'm going on a diet. I'm changing my life. How long will the diet last? Until Thursday. Or it's like, yeah, I feel so great about myself. I quit smoking. Yeah. How long? Since last Thursday. But I'll take it up again on Monday. That's not quitting. That's just taking a vacation. You haven't changed. Change is like, I will never do that again. So let's look. Yeah, please. Yeah. Oh.
Does it, can it really take weeks to repent?
So look on the page that you're on, page 13, questions, number 3, that's your question. No, you've been anticipated. He was thinking, that, Ruth is going to come along. She's going to say, wait a minute here. Last week you said everyone has the opportunity.
I should.
No, 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 no. Just no, that's exactly right. So part of the Jewish tradition always is part of the Jewish tradition always is trying to balance between things that both cannot be true at the same time. Okay, that's all of tradition. There's always things that can't be true at the same time. Most famously, Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chaim hem. These and these are the words of the living God. Well, how can that be possible? You got to pick one. So, but isn't that life? Life is about choosing between competing ideals. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, so let's look at this Mishnah on the bottom of the page, and it's about returning from a city of refuge. Okay, so raise your hand if you know exactly what a city of refuge is and why someone might return from it. I'm not seeing any hands. Okay, I'll tell you. If I murder someone on purpose, not Jewish, the Torah says it's the death penalty, okay? Torah does not believe in imprisonment as a punishment. It believes in death, physical injury, and monetary compensation. The rabbis modified that to just monetary compensation and all of these things. Well, except for death. So what happens if, the classic example, you're hammering, no, you're chopping wood, right? You're chopping wood, we've all chopped wood, you chop, and you go, it's like, where's the axe head? Where'd that go? Because you got a handle, no axe head, and you look around and, oh, you found the axe head. It's buried in the forehead of the person behind you, okay? It could happen. It could happen, probably in a horror movie, probably in a satirical horror movie. Okay, are you guilty of murder? No. Do you have a problem? Yes. What is the problem? That's not the problem. The problem is the victim's family. That's the problem. They are going to want to do what? Kill you. Sue you. What, Mark? What century are you living in here? They want to kill you, right? So you're going to run. And the Bible sets aside 6 cities of refuge. You run and you go to the city of refuge. You say, hi, I'm an accidental killer. Please protect me. And you are safe in the city. Nobody can go in to attack you. You leave at your own risk. Okay? I'm sure there might have been families camped out by the city saying, okay, I'm just going to wait. Someone's going to come. Right? So when do you get to leave a city of refuge? Yes, burials are outside the wall. No, but there are two conditions, okay? That'd be too easy. No, so the first situation is, I'm not sure, I think at the end of the, at the end of the cycle of it's here's what happens when the high priest dies. Everything's reset, everyone's forgiven, it's a general amnesty, and they can leave the cities. They have no choice. It's a new era, right? In the same way that, like, it used to be when the King of England dies or the Queen of England, right? It's a reset button. By the way, this meant that the families of the victims were always and the families of the people in the prison they always took very, very good. The high priest's family always took very, very good care for them, because the high priest did not want to be killed, so that the families could be reunited. So I want to keep them happy lest they assassinate me, just to get the guy out of prison. Anyways, so the high priest has died. It's a new era, general amnesty. You get to go home. And here's his mission on page 13. Okay. Rotzer shagala le'ir miklato. An accidental killer who went to his city of his refuge. But Hoser, he returns. Lasrara shahayava, to his former home, to the office that he formerly held. Divrei Rabbi Meir. So if you used to be the chief magistrate or the accountant or the blacksmith, you get returned to your former position, right? You're an accidental killer, right? You can go back to your old job. It's like jury duty, sort of. You don't lose your job just because you were an accident. That's according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Lo haya chozer lisrara shahayava. No, you don't return to your former office. Right? I'm sorry, you can't go back there. Right? Somebody else has replaced you, and it's not fair to them. But maybe more. Okay. So, what do you think underlines this malochet, this disagreement between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda? Why does Rabbi Yehuda draw a red line about returning to a position of authority after returning from the city of refuge? Why can't you be in a position of authority, not just saying, but authority after you are coming back from being an accidental killer, a person who cannot keep his axe head under control? What do you think is going on? Yeah, okay.
Did he really repent when he went away? Did he, we don't know that. So I don't know if Rabbi Yehuda is right. How do I know that?
I don't think Rabbi Yehuda is even talking about repentance.
Return to his office.
Yeah.
On returning home, he returned to the office he formerly held.
I mean, he's guiltless in the first place.
Right.
I mean, it's okay.
It was
Look,
accident.
it was an accident, right?
Maybe they're not seeing, maybe he's not showing even if it's an accident, you have to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I should have checked the stability of the head of the axe on the stick.
Okay.
I should have done this.
Right,
And I should
okay.
have done that.
Okay. Other thoughts? Okay. So,
In that case, who's the actor? I forget his name.
Oh, well.
Oh, you mean Alec Baldwin?
Yeah,
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
supposed to, I assume.
With the gun and.
Yeah.
yeah, Alec Baldwin. Okay, it's like,
You don't aim the firearms.
okay,
Different
so
issue.
I know this. So,
Yeah, but he said he didn't know the ammunition was bad. That's what but then they said he always, before you pick up a gun, you check.
How many people died from the unloaded handgun?
Uh-huh.
so I'm gonna say it's about. I don't like having pretend guns pointed at me. I don't like real guns being pointed at me. I it really freaks me out. But I know nothing about guns, right? And I'd like to say that if I was hired to be in a movie and someone says, okay, here's your job. Here's this object. It looks like a gun. Your job is to wave it around and don't worry, it's safe. I think that I have to kind of trust that the systems do. I'm not saying he's I want to try, or maybe I test fire at the ground just to make sure to reassure myself. But if I don't know anything about guns, how am I supposed to? But that's okay. As I said, I know nothing about it. Clearly, something went disastrously wrong. Okay, we'll talk about it after on.
Yes.
Okay, so we have to understand what's going on between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, and we don't really understand why they're disagreeing, and we need to know because we're kind of curious, right? Because what if it was a more serious crime? What if it was a lesser crime? What if it was to a higher authority or lesser authority? Right. So let's continue on the next page. So we're on page 14. Okay. So this is from the Ritva. The Ritva is a commentator in Spain in the 13th and 14th centuries. and he's explaining the mission. He says, everyone, both Rebbe Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, agree. If the individual did not have an established position, then now upon returning to the city of refuge, we would not even appoint the person to be an irrigation manager. Okay? So number one, you're an accidental killer. You cannot be in a position of authority. People are not going to look up to you. People are not going to accept you. People are not going to trust you. Okay? So don't look as a career advancement to go to prison and then come out and guns blazing. And this, even though he had killed someone accidentally. If he had killed someone on purpose, definitely we would not appoint him to a position of authority.
He had gotten into the city of refuge.
No, but it's the alcha kama v'kama, right? Are we all the more so? So what we're learning from this is now we have three cases. I'm an accidental killer if I had an established position, disagreement on whether I return to it. If I didn't have an established position, I'm definitely not returning to it. And certainly, if I killed on purpose, I'm not returning to it. So the only situation they're unsure of is if I am returning to a position where I was before. And what does that remind us of? Name of course. Name of this course. Teshuva. Reminds us of Teshuva, right? He wants to return to his old position of authority, right? And this is parallel to us in our lives, right? In a way, if you're in a relationship with someone and you do something accidentally and you breach your place in that relationship and you're in timeout, they don't even want to talk to you, you're in refuge. And now, okay, the timeout is over and you go to return. The question is, can you return to your old relationship? Will they ever trust you again? Will they be your friend again? Are they going to invite you for coffee? If they have an extra ticket to the sports game, are you the one they want to go with? Okay? Can you return to your old position? That's tshuva, right? So tshuva is not just about me changing my ways. It's about me returning to my old position, right? That's the whole conceit of this course, to try to play on that notion of return, right? It's both returning from my wayward ways, even if my ways were always wayward, but also returning to, repairing the relationship. So Rifa explains the only dispute involves the case with two criteria. One, whether a person can reinstate it, and two, it only applies to accidental. In the case of an intentional murderer, they cannot receive anything. So do you agree with where they're going on their way that they lay out these three cases? Right? It makes sense. If you did it on purpose, you can never enter. It makes sense that if you were never in a position, you can't go back to that position. But the question is whether you can return to a position that you used to. And they're disagreeing. One says yes, one says no.
Because people will remember and go like, really, was it accidental? Maybe he did know the person behind them, made it look like. I watched too many murder mysteries. And there's like that element of distrust.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, I think that's exactly right? Do you trust? Okay, let's talk about Robert Downey Jr. Okay. Robert Downey Jr. really kind of got off the derech, got off the path.
Mhm.
And did he serve time? He certainly served a time out. And then he came back and did much better, right? like he made Teshuva, right? And then there are people who they used to be a criminal and then they went into acting. Like some of the people in the gangster movies are actually former gangsters who said, hey, this is so much better, right? So, yeah. So I think your history comes with you, right? How can I trust this guy when I know that he failed? It's like not Gray Davis, but what's his name going back to be governor of California after 30 years? Yeah, it's like the first time around it was one thing. The second time it's like, wait, is he a different person or not? I don't know. Okay.
Marion Barry.
Or Marion Barry, come back. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's like, okay, so what's the significance of whether it's a new position of authority or an old position? Why does that matter?
One sounds like it would be people, presumably the same people are there, and do they accept you back? How do they deal with you? And a new authority would be, well, does your reputation precede you? It most likely would, and you're in this new position, and maybe people are not going to want to work with you or respect you or what have you.
So with the old position that you had, people remember, wait, he used to be a good guy. With the new position, we know. I'm sorry, I can't pick anyone from current politics because, I mean, right now, the country cannot agree on anything. So I'm just going to say that, no, I can't think of any examples. It's just, sorry. Go there. Not even from humor. Okay. Now, Mark had asked us last 2 weeks ago, would you consider being accepted into a prestigious university, back to our test case, to be a position of authority? Why or why not? Right? That's back to our example of the woman who's the ex-con, who's now applying to university. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Is that a position of authority? Okay, well, I don't know. I mean, did you guys look up to university professors?
That's a problem in of itself.
They're supposed to be your mentors, right? Of course, university professors have immense influence. They're almost as important as rabbis. That was self-deprecating humor. Okay. Well, let's look at another source. Let's see if we can get some insight here. So this is from Maimonides. Right? Maimonides is a great resource. Maimonides says, an unintentional killer who returned to his town after the death of the high priest should be regarded as any other person. A clean slate is a clean slate, right? You convert to Judaism, you're a new person, your history doesn't come back to you, right? The high priest dies, it's as if the world has died and be reborn. Everything is new, right? In Canada, and in England, certainly, all of the laws were dated according to E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, right? 1 being the first year of Elizabeth's rule, 2 being the second year for Elizabeth's rule, 3 being the third year, right? They got up to E, however long she was queen. And now with Charles, any new legislation coming out is from C1 or C3, 1. Okay? So Charles III, first year, or 1C. However they do it, okay? The thing is, it's a new world. It's a new beginning. And if the high priest has died and it's a new beginning and everyone's released from the city of refuge, it means you're released from the city of refuge means they can't be mad at you anymore. It's a new life. And if it's a new life, why should your past be held against you? Of course. Why should your why should you be going back to your old position if you're no person? But that's a different story. So, and if an avenger killed him, the family's been waiting. They've been waiting a long time. The avenger would be executed on account of him since he obtained atonement in exile. In other words, the avenger, who would have been blameless for killing, revenging, or avenging, he'd just be a straight out murderer. So if it's good enough for that, be good enough for, everyone, right? Now, even though he attained atonement, he could never come back to a public office held by him previously. He can't return to your public office, however. He is lowered from his stature for the remainder of his life because such a significant failing occurred through him. Right?
Could we take a current example? of
Sure.
Unintentional killing. The captain of the ship that ran into the bridge, that brought down the bridge.
Right.
Killed 6 people.
Right.
Can he ever be the captain of a ship again?
Well, what do you guys think?
Military ship, no.
Based on these rules that we just covered, I say, no, he can't. He can't be the captain of a ship anymore.
So the question is, why can't he be the captain?
That's gonna be a function of whatever it is. If the ship actually did lose power, and he had no ability to steer it, that's totally different than.
It's turning out that they lost power when they were still in dock. So he knew that there was a
I'm
problem.
just saying, yes, that I don't
Right.
know.
That just came out.
Yeah, it's the old thing, military, the captain of the ship is sleeping and some young ensign runs the ship aground.
Right.
That captain will never get a command again,
Right.
even though he was legally sleeping. Totally different rules, so,
But he wasn't supposed to be that time.
even if he was.
It's about responsibility, right? When you are in a position of responsibility, and again, this is something which you see more in Britain and Canada than you see here. You're the Minister of Defense. Your soldiers go off the farm or I don't know what the phrase is. They go and they do something terrible. You are no longer the Minister of Defense because you can't. Now, you might come back and be the minister of something else, like the Minister of Environment, or Minister of this, or Minister of that. But you can't return to the same position, certainly, and you should return to an inferior position. Now, of course, Kim Campbell actually went on to become Prime Minister, but then her party was absolutely devastated and destroyed in the election afterwards. So, that tells you what happened. That was for other reasons, but still, right. So I think there's this, I think what he's saying is, if it's a position of authority, people have to have trust. And you only get to break the trust once. And once you've broken the trust, you are damaged. And therefore you could have second in command position where somebody's overseeing you, but we're never going to trust you with the reins again. How do we feel about that? Dan, do you have some thoughts on this?
Looking at what's happening now in our country, yeah, I guess I would agree with that. There's just some people that would just come back and do it all over again.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna steer us away from that. But just Douglas Adams, in talking about politics, he's asking, why is it that the the wildebeest keep electing alligators to be in charge of the government when like it's mostly wildebeest and the alligators eat the wildebeest. Why do they keep voting for alligators? He says, well, why don't they vote for wildebeest? He says, well, if I vote for a wildebeest, the wrong alligator might win. Okay. Okay. So I think that's the situation we're in. They're all alligators, and we don't want the wrong alligator to win. Completely missing the point that they're all alligators. I think we can all agree on that one. Okay.
That's the old school.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, so because a significant failing occurred through him. Okay, so I'm there's an aside to that I'll bring up in a moment, but do you think Maimonides is being fair? Do you think you can ever return to your old position?
We're talking about consequences, and although somebody might truly repent, something has changed.
Mhm.
Even though you want to return to what you had before, this example of, not coming back to anything you did previously is kind of reminding you in a way of what you did, what you did had some consequences, and even though you repented, people may trust you, but
Mhm.
things are different. I don't know that this is saying to me that things aren't exactly the same, because how could things be exactly the same even if you repented? Think you changed, maybe your relationship with other people changed.
So maybe before we trusted, and now we trust, but we verify.
2,000 more years to get a guy to come out and say that. I mean, it doesn't talk about the people he comes back to be over, if you sense. It's like, oh, he's back. Do we really have to follow him?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
how do the people feel about this?
Yeah,
It's
well,
just so embedded in rabbinic law that they
well,
take it.
I think that's the problem is that they're looking at the people and saying, well, how do I feel trusting this guy again? Right? So now we've been talking about accidental murderers, where it's like a big thing, right? What about lesser transgressions? Right? How do we decide whether a person can receive a position of authority after having served their punishment for, I don't know, something lesser like embezzlement or misogyny? No.
Well, if you
Fraud,
embezzle,
fraud.
they're not gonna trust you in any position that involves money. So, if you're gonna be,
Or bribe.
if you embezzle, nobody's gonna hire you as the CFO.
But it's like I can only think of bad examples. You know, are there any politicians out there who have committed past wrongs that we have come to allow to be in charge again?
Guy from New York, what's his name? Who lied about his heritage?
Oh,
Yes.
That's what's trusting him again.
Trusting him.
No, I want examples of, like
You want someone.
like Teddy Kennedy and Chappaquiddick, right? It's like, well, we'll trust him again.
They did.
They did?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I've got more Cherokee blood than she does.
Oh. But that wasn't a big transgression. That was just a stupidity.
You got her
If
to
you ever
Harvard
saw
free
that
of
bridge
charge.
in Chappaquiddick, they're like, how did she? It's not big, and not know that he did, never mind.
I'm sure if we really worked hard, we could think of someone who had done something wrong in the past and then came around and was a much better person for it. Sure we can.
And he's married Barry.
Yeah.
Whether he's any better the second time, I don't No, but
So, so there's this,
And they do a transgression, but in Marion Barry's case, he did a lot for the people that live in Washington DC.
Yeah.
And that's probably why he got reelected. They probably think, well, everybody, all my neighbors, are into drugs. What's a big deal?
yeah.
So
Okay, so
I would vote.
so there's this line that's coming to me from a novel. So it was a novel by Robert Heinlein. Apparently, it's his most famous novel that I'd never read, so I found to look at it. I always thought Heinlein, Stranger in a Strange Land, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, but no, apparently it's Starship Troopers. That was his book. Okay, and they said, well, it's a little militaristic because he seems to be advocating for a position of, if you don't serve in the military, you really shouldn't get to vote. Interesting. It just and we're not sure if he's serious or if it's satire. Paul Verhoeven made it into a film, and it was definitely satire. But both films have the same variation of story, where you've got the character Johnny, and Johnny does something where, in the book, could have gotten a colleague killed, and in the movie, actually does get someone he's responsible for killed. And the commandant says to the staff sergeant or whatever, is there any rehabilitating the soldier? Right? Can this person be salvaged? Right? Can this person be salvaged? Right? And the answer is yes. And having made a mistake makes him a much better leader going forward. Right? Someone who has gotten burned is much better at knowing where the fire begins, right? And sometimes I think we can all imagine a situation where someone who made a mistake and learned a very important lesson from it is perhaps more trustworthy than someone who never made a mistake, but they're kind of fuzzy on where that edge is. Right? Better is the person who has sinned and repented than the person who's never sinned at all. Which is taking us into how does this relate to our case? Of this woman who wants to become a professor, right? Can she served her time? The high priestess died, so to speak. She comes out. She's served her debt to society. She has been rehabilitated. She has been corrected. Okay, she's here and she's doing this great. And it's like the board is like, whoa, we don't want to hire her. Does
Only some
anything that
people-
would what?
No, only some people do. Not the whole board.
No. The board of I think New York University or whoever it was, they said we overrule you and we're not taking her. She ended up getting a job somewhere else. Right. But now we're looking at that board and
But
saying,
the
hey,
reason they rejected her, not because of the crime she committed, but that she downplayed her crime on her application.
that may have been one of the reasons.
Which means they thought she didn't repent.
Ah.
Because she didn't take responsibility for the crime that she committed.
Right. Although that may or may not have been the one reason. I think one person had that, but perhaps they had other reasons. Perhaps it's like, what are we going to do when 6 months from now, she writes an amazing book and she's interviewed and it comes out, by the way, she's an ex-con, and then the howling masses are going to say, how could you hire someone who did this? And how are we going to, we don't want that nightmare. We'll just avoid it completely. It's a PR problem. So looking at this, does this apply to any of the things we talked about? A position of authority apply to our thinking about our woman who wants to teach, or someone who wants to make tshuva?
Board's looking out for the school. Your
Yeah.
example about PR nightmare. And of course, then all the alumni will stop sending the checks in, it's a political thing. Same thing with, the same thing with the presidents of, the various elite schools, and I use that word lightly, had to resign because they gave the wrong answer in front of Congress.
Yeah, that
And
was
all the donors stopped,
They threatened.
yeah.
I was reading
I don't know
something
if they stopped. but
this week. 13 judges just said, we're not gonna hire any Columbia law grads as our clerks.
Yeah, that's
That just, the ones who didn't
Yeah,
protest.
and I think that's unfortunate because and I'm not going to have the camera on you. Okay, I'm putting the camera on me, so you can be
Okay.
completely honest here. How many of you did something in your youth that was so stupid or so egregious that you don't want to admit it to anyone in this room? Okay, we all did. The difference is we weren't caught. Okay. Okay, we didn't get caught. So
getting-
I think these law students, weren't we all idealistic and stupid when we were in college, if we were in college? And then we grew up. Okay. So like to have a black, well, I'd like to work for your firm. Well, I'm sorry, 35 years ago when you were a student, you said something stupid. You've been great for 35 years, but so I can't get over that thing that you signed, that petition you signed, that letter you signed. Like, did you even read the letter, or did you just do it because the woman that you liked signed the letter? I should sign it too. I'm maybe projecting here. Okay, so let's look at our last page.
It's very biblical, especially if you go back to the Moses coming off the mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, the Jews said they had to walk 40 years, and even Moses couldn't get into the same thing.
Well, Moses not getting into the promised land
That's
is
something else.
no. There's two reasons Moses doesn't get into the promised land. Number one, he's 120 years old, and he has been leading a let's stand still economy for the last 40 years. And now they're about to wage war. He's not the right leader for the moment. Number two, he's 120 years old. Number three, Josh was only 85. So look, Aaron's already dead. Old age, 123. So, and the second reason Moses doesn't get to go in is because if he went in even as a secondary, Josh would never be able to make authority, because how can you be the leader when Moses, it's like God bless him and keep him and his soul rest in peace. Winston Churchill resigning as leader of the party and staying as a backbencher to rain down terror on his successors via heckle. Okay. I mean, you guys are smart. When someone finishes being the president, they're done. Except for the guy who then decided to go to the Supreme Court, and okay, and also the one who went to the Senate and then the Supreme Court. Didn't Pierce do that? I think one of the guys, after being president, then they went and they became a senator, and then they
Adams became a congressman.
maybe. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so
Maybe
it's
that.
possible, but we don't do that.
Oh,
Okay. So, in the three opening sessions of this course, we've studied a number of texts about Teshuva. We've seen how Teshuva has been built into the fabric of the world as an essential pillar of Jewish life. Furthermore, we've seen that Teshuva is not only something in the hands of God, but something as human beings we need to emulate. Lastly, we've seen there are limitations, at least when it comes to certain serious actions regarding a person's ability to regain the status they had before committing the offense. This is all common sense we could have figured out on our own, but now we understand it in beautiful Talmudic detail. So let's return to the case described at the opening session of the unit. Miss Jones becomes an accomplished historian while serving 20 years prison sentence. It's accepted, and then rejected from Harvard University. Basing yourself on the sources in this unit, how would you approach Ms. Jones' application as a member of a university admissions committee? How has your position changed, if at all, through studying these sources? Has anyone's opinion, first of all, does anyone remember their opinion from 3 weeks ago, whether she should be admitted or not? Murder. We don't know. We don't know, right? You can make it up. You can decide it was like the burning bed type murder. You can pretend it was the I wanted money for drugs murder. You can. It was
Well, it has to be
murder.
20 years.
Okay, murder, right? It could have been I was mopping the floor for my friend after he killed his mother who was abusing him, and they didn't prosecute him because they knew they'd never get a conviction against him. But me, I admitted to mopping the floor, murder. It could be any of those. We don't know. It could be with evil intent in my heart. I just decided. Who knows? Has our opinion changed? Like, pretend you are the admissions committee and you've got this application. She's the best person ever to apply ever. But there's this one not so little stain on her record. And she's made tshuva.
There was part of her, she didn't show that she was remorseful. She didn't, what's the word?
That was 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. That's what happened.
You didn't show attrition or.
Yeah, something like that. She really, she downplayed it. That's all. She downplayed it. So like, we had a lot of questions from that. if I
Okay.
recall. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we
Okay.
made a determination
think we
3
did.
weeks.
Oh.
We didn't come to any.
Well-
Because we knew we were
Well,
gonna
well,
read
has,
the
has
lessons.
okay, so has anything changed? Like, have you, what he's really asking is, have you, as a person who is in a position to be approached by someone who has harmed you and is making tshuva, have you changed in the last 3 weeks based upon what we've been reading and studying in how you might approach, accept, or reject that person? I think that's what it's really asking. Has this had any influence on your thinking? Changed your thinking at all, or expanded it, or nuanced it?
Say a little bit, you know why? Because for the third time in 30 years, I am rewatching The Sopranos. And there is, I forget his first name, Mr.
Tony?
Tony, at the and he's hesitant about calling the murder of someone. He's in a position, I'm on episode 3, I think. And it's made me, this course has made me look at this kind of thing. So I'm like, he knows that this guy may be cheating or isn't loyal to him.
Yep.
And his first things were, oh, we're gonna kill him. But then he starts to think and he goes to the psychiatrist and he starts discussing it. So he's like, hesitating. And I thought about this course, I'm going, whoa. What rabbi did they consult for this? It was like, it's interesting. Yeah.
He never atoned for. He never. even
No, he
said-
doesn't atone for it, but he questions himself.
Wow.
Yeah.
But he still did it. He still had him murdered.
No, he didn't.
Oh, he didn't?
No,
Oh,
no,
wow.
no, he found out later that the guy wasn't the culprit, that it was somebody else, he had somebody else.
Oops.
Nearly killed the whole guy, yeah. It's interesting to watch these things, he's sort of like delving into what's making them go, their mental process, yeah.
I have a really basic question. How do you make Teshuva?
Oh,
How do you, by apologizing for your sin? Is that enough? Or what, or you, if you rob somebody, you have to give them back the money, is that, did you? I don't know. I don't think this court has answered that question.
Yet,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, all
that-
right.
yet, because I'm holding out hope, right?
Right,
So. I think that if we return back to our original definitions of tshuva at the beginning in the first session.
repent.
And well, so we're looking at in the first session. And so you're right, it doesn't exactly define. I think that it's a matter of if the situation happened all over again and they were presented with the same set of choices and the same set of facts, would they have made a different decision? That's tshuva. Okay? So, and I think elsewhere Maimonides says, if there's a person and they really lusted after this certain type and they gave in. They had a wonderful time, but it was wrong. And now they've resolved never to do that again. And then they encounter another person who's just exactly the kind of person they want to dally with. They really want to. But they say, no, I'm a different person. Don't do that anymore. You should never. That's true.
Sounds too easy.
Too easy. Have you tried? After you've given up chocolate, have you tried not having the chocolate? Oh my God, man. Being on a diet. Have you never been on a diet? That's not easy. It's not, look, it's, castrate isn't about the stuff that you never eat anyways. It's like, it's the, oh my God, this is like manna from heaven, which wasn't very good, by the way. That's the hard one, right? It's like, Rabbi Becher, I forget his first name. He has a comedy routine. He says, look, I don't not eat pork because it's disgusting. I hear it's very good. I mean, like several billion people can't be wrong. But I don't have it because my Father in heaven says, no, it's not for you. So it's like, tshuva is, because you can't always undo what you did. I think most often you can't undo what you did. The only thing you can change is how you behave, right? And this goes back into psychology, right? So when we are children, we're presented with situations and we try out coping strategies, and the one that works, we stick with. So for a lot of us, that is screaming and crying because that works, Later on, we learned that there are other better ways to get what we want, like language. And so we abandon those earlier maladaptive coping mechanisms for ones that are more adaptive. Now, sometimes we run into a situation as an adult that we haven't encountered since we were a little kid. And when that happens, what do? We behave the same way we did when we were a little kid because it worked last time. But it's very different reacting to a bully as a 50-year-old than it is dealing with a bully when you were a 5-year-old, right? You need to use a different technique, right? But you haven't had any practice. You haven't thought about it. You haven't, okay. But then you go and you sit with your therapist and you do role play and you do a role play and you figure out different ways of responding. And now the next time the bully comes, you respond in an adult way. I think you've made some kind of teshuva, you've made some kind of change. Right? So I'm cautious about saying, well, that's not enough or that's too easy. I don't think teshuva is easy. Changing your ways is not easy, right? If I said to any of you here, I want you to change the way you do something. From now on, always put on your right shoe before your left, but tie your left shoe before your right. How easy is that going to be to do tomorrow? Never mind the rest of your life. Because, the grooves, right? But I have a friend who he's reading Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the short version of the popular version of the Jewish law, and it says there's a Jewish way of putting on your shoes. You put the right one on first because you always do the right thing first. Then you put on the left shoe. But you tie the left shoe first in honor of to fill in being tied on your left arm. And then you tie the right shoe. So he started putting on his right shoe first and then his left shoe, and then tied the left shoe and then go back and tie the right shoe. And he changed his ways. I have a lot of respect for that. That wasn't easy.
That goes to kind of behavior modification.
Yeah.
It's behavior modification. I used to teach a smoke enders group.
Yep.
Okay, and that's the toughest. It's tough.
Yeah.
And most people fail.
Yeah.
But they try again.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the mantra.
Yep.
Keep trying.
Right. And
One
then
of two things are going to happen. You're going to stop smoking and live, or you'll die.
Solves the problem.
That solves the problem.
that is one way of approaching it. Yes. So right, and this is Maimonides said this in when he's talking about why teshuva has to be a fundamental part of reality and human nature. If there is no possibility that we can change our ways, what's the point? We're just automatic machines. Right? Now, we can train an animal to behave differently. Then they're stuck with it. But they didn't decide to change. We decided for it. As far as I know, human beings are the only creatures that can wake up one morning and say, you know something? I don't like the way I'm doing this. I want to do it differently. And we can modify our nature. That's teshuva. It's returning to or returning closer to the ideal potential of what we could be.
That's the case, then this woman who applied in the doctoral program should have been accepted. Based on what you just said. She's changed herself.
Right.
She's no longer a murderer.
Right. And if you believe that a university system is in to take clay and mold it into human beings who can participate in our democratic system, then you would want to hold her up as an example, as an exemplar, not just run away from her, but hold her out. I love movies. Does someone else like movies? Okay, so one of my favorite movies is The American President. Remember The American President with Michael Douglas and Annette Bening, right? And there's this one scene. He says, "Bob," the guy going on. He says, "Bob says that I'm a card-carrying member of the ACLU. I am. My question is, Bob, why aren't you? The ACLU stands up for these values. Don't you stand up for those values?" Okay, so that's what you could do with this. It's like, if we really believe in the correction system and in justice, then when you're done, you should be done. And we're going to stand up that, and yeah, we're going to lose some funding from people whose minds are not open to this. Maybe we'll go out of business, but it's the right thing to do. Anyways, we'll see you all next